If you're not a real estate professional, if you're not a full-time realtor, if you're not passionate about what you're doing, if you're not in the game, you can't provide value to help somebody with the largest asset of their life.
Lisa, thanks for joining me. I appreciate you coming in, spending the time. Like I said, as we were chatting, getting sat down, you're one of like 3.5 or 4 realtors that I enjoy just talking shop with, and I appreciate you coming in and doing that. I know you've been licensed now for 15 years?
14 years in July.
Okay,
Yep.
14 years in July. And you've done everything from leadership to training to, I think, being on a team to being solo to being number 1 buyer's agent in your office. You've kind of worn a lot of hats, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
lots of hats.
Yeah, which is what I appreciate about you. And I think you can see this business from a lot of different perspectives. That's why I wanted to have you here to talk a little bit about just kind of what's happening in the local marketplace. I mean, our business right now is just in a really weird spot, as we were kind of talking about before we sat down here. So just wanted to, I guess, start chatting with you about what we're seeing out there right now. What are you seeing right now as some of the challenges for your clients, whether that be buyers or sellers right now? What do you think is the challenge for them?
I think there's some similar challenges for buyers and sellers. I think obviously affordability is one of the biggest things. So even if you're a buyer in this market, often you're a seller too, because you have people that want to move up. So affordability and just, rates, it's funny because we think rates are so high, but historically rates are like right in line with where they've been historically for the last 40 years. But I think coupling interest rates with home values is making a lot of people sit and wait on the sidelines, and they're waiting for rates to drop before they enter the market. So I think affordability is part of it. I think that there's a lot of chatter right now in our industry. There's just a lot of noise and people aren't really sure what to make of it. And I think that's why they need a local real estate agent to help them get through that. And also I'm seeing firsthand with all my buyers that pretty much every home I've written on so far this year, we've been in multiple offers. And it's not just 1 or 2 offers, it's usually 3 to 4 offers. And I just learned the hard way last week with a buyer that I'm working with. We wrote a great offer. We were way over asking price, great, strong terms, but we had a home inspection and we had a well septic inspection, which you would expect when you're buying a,
Which you should have.
$750,000 $1 million home. And the seller went with another offer because they didn't want to deal with a home inspection or a well septic inspection. So it's a little bit of that too. It's how do you navigate buying a home and winning multiple offers when you have buyers that are willing to not have those inspections and not have any sort of contingencies, and they're going to be the ones that are going to be winning because it's not always about price.
Yeah. It's hard right now, I think, balancing looking out for your client's best interests and getting them the home they want.
Exactly.
I think that's a really hard balance right now. And it's been like that. I feel like we've been talking about that now for 5 years, right?
Yeah.
What about on the sell side, on the seller side? What's some of your challenges you're seeing for sellers? I know for buyers, I think, affordability, I totally agree. I think it's out of hand. I don't know that rates are going to come down now. I don't. Yeah. And they've come out and said, we're going to hold tight. For a while, everybody was thinking upper 5s by the end of this year. And now I think we're going to just hang around 7 for the rest of the year. But as a seller, what some of the challenges that you're seeing and what are you doing to kind of navigate through that?
Yeah. So a lot of my sellers are buyers also. So they want to move up. So they're in their first home and they want to move up into their second home. And a lot of them have the capacity to do that. They have the income to support that. A lot of sellers have a lot of equity right now. So I'm seeing a lot of people putting $200,000-$300,000 down on a property where back in the day it was like $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 down. So I think for sellers, I deal with a lot of sellers that have a 2.5% fixed rate mortgage. They have a desire to move, but they're stuck. They're just waiting for that perfect home or they're waiting for that right time to make that move. So I do coach and consult a lot of my clients and encourage them to look at retaining that property as a rental property, because if they have a $1,400 monthly mortgage and they can rent that property out for $2,200 a month, that's a substantial amount of cash flow. And that's like a part-time job for some people.
Right.
That's a game changer for some people. Yeah. So I think for sellers, it's just a matter of sellers want to make sure that they have a great realtor. And a lot of sellers, I've talked to 2 sellers this week. I had 2 appointments this week, and they were looking at working with a flat fee brokerage. And because in their minds, realtors all do the same thing. If a lot of sellers think that we all do the same thing, and we do not. We do not do the same thing. There is a very big difference between a real estate professional and someone that just does this as a part-time hobby. And unfortunately, we have a lot of those people in our industry. And I feel like I probably contributed to a little bit of that as a former recruiter for my company, which I still love. And I'm very passionate about doing that. But I do believe that there's going to be, with everything going on, I think that there's going to be a lot of realtors that got into real estate during COVID, because a lot of things were changing and it's really easy to get a real estate license. So a lot of people jumped in. And I think we'll start to see a few of those, or maybe a lot of those people start to exit the industry, which I think is better for everybody. If you're not a real estate professional, if you're not a full-time realtor, if you're not passionate about what you're doing, if you're not in the game, you can't provide value to help somebody with the largest asset of their life. So that's what I'm excited for.
100% agree. I want to kind of continue down that rabbit hole a little bit. You've, again, worn a lot of hats. You've been a recruiter, you've been a trainer, you've been on various levels of this industry, and you've seen a lot of people come and go in this industry. If you were to say there's one or two things that separates that agent, I mean, you probably knew. You'd look at somebody, you'd probably say, this person's going to make it or this person's not.
Yeah.
Was there something that separated a really good agent from somebody that just didn't succeed in the business?
Yeah, good agents that get started in real estate and succeed, I'm finding they have a mentor. They have somebody in their world that is helping them, because getting started in real estate as a new agent it's very intimidating. It takes 2 years to really get things rolling. Most people quit in the first few years. We know that statistically 87% of people drop out within the first 5 years. So there's a lot of people get in, a lot of people get out. So I think having a mentor is really important. They're just wired different. I always say,
How so? What makes, is there a specific thing that, I've always tried to figure this out too.
Yes.
Like, what is that? I'm wired way different than anybody. And I don't want anybody wired the way I am, but
I agree.
What is that one thing?
It's grit, it's hustle, it's this drive, and it's not outside forces or outside factors that's creating that drive. It's coming from within. It's coming from your soul. So I think that they're resilient, they are dedicated, they're committed, they have a vision. So you have to know what you want, and then you got to build a game plan and figure out, how do I get there, and then have that support around you. It's so important.
I kind of say you got to have a why, right?
Yes.
Like, why do you get up every day? Why are you in this business? What is your why? And that why can change daily, monthly, weekly, annually, whatever it is. That can change, but you got to have a reason to get up and perform, because it's a grind. Yeah, grit is a great way to describe that person that separates. That's that differentiator in a good agent from a great agent.
Yes.
So
people don't care what you do; they care why you do it. I think Simon Sinek talks about that.
Yeah.
The
No,
why.
I totally agree. That's all good information. Backing up a little bit, you mentioned some of the challenges with sellers. You know, one of the things I think you're seeing and I'm seeing and we're all seeing in this industry is that lock-in effect, right?
Yes.
I mean, and convince is the wrong word, but sellers just don't want to move because of their interest rate, right? And I think you touched on a good thing, that is a real option of keeping your home and keeping that low interest rate. We'll never see those again, right? Never ever see those again. So one of the hardest things for my sellers right now is putting the 2 to 3% interest rates in the rearview mirror, forgetting about it, knowing it's never going to happen again, accepting the reality of the new interest rates and moving on. Now, it's a hard pill to swallow, but I think that's been the biggest challenge for me, and I think for a lot of us. So I would agree with that. And then it's, I think, kind of resetting those expectations and getting them to understand that that was an anomaly that we'll never see again in our lifetime. Probably like 2008 was an anomaly we'll never see again in our lifetime. We have to just get that. I think time will kind of heal that.
I think so too.
And we'll get past that.
I think so too.
And you touched on a couple of other things, and we started to go down that path. And I know I want to talk about it. We talked a little bit about things being just strange right now. And I think the biggest thing is some of the headlines that are coming out regarding this NAR settlement and some of the misinformation. And I don't want to get into, what's going to happen or what's not going to happen. I just want to talk about kind of what you're seeing on a daily basis as a result of this whole headline has come out. And the headline is real estate commissions are going away, or real estate commissions are no longer 6%. I mean, real estate commissions are this and that, and our business is upside down and we're not needed anymore, basically.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
What are you seeing on a daily basis that's real?
That's a great question. I'm glad you brought that up. And I'd love to know what you're seeing too. So I think for me personally, in my experience, a lot of my friends, clients, my people are asking about it, but they're not like overly concerned. They're like, what's going on? And just tell me the real story. What's really happening? And this process could take years. We have no idea what's going to happen. It sounds like it's changing week to week, right? I don't think that there's going to be as much disruption as they think there's going to be. I think that as real estate agents, we're going to up our game because we've been pushed against the wall a little bit. And we do a lot of things that consumers don't know that we do. And if consumers don't know that sometimes I have worked with a buyer for over a year and they ended up not buying with me. In fact, I had a buyer, I showed him 120 properties, which I'm embarrassed to say because that is like
120?
it was over a course of a year and a half.
Oh my
And
God.
it was somebody that my husband worked with, so I couldn't just like tell him off, right?
Yeah.
And it was, of course, it was a long time. And it was when, back in 2014, 15. And I showed him a lot of properties. He was very particular, canceled contracts after we had the inspection because there were some things that was wrong. He didn't want to negotiate. Anyway, he ended up getting relocated to another city for work. So we had to cancel the contract we were under. I had to then refer him to an agent in his new community. And I was out. I mean, I don't even know how much time and energy I had, but that's the side of our industry that people don't understand is realtors are not attorneys.
Yeah.
We are completely opposite of attorneys, and I appreciate attorneys because we need them and they know the law. We work, we care, we will do whatever it takes. They're family members to us. We love our clients like family. So I think that we just have to get really good at the conversation, showing our value, showing why it's a benefit to actually pay a buyer agent commission. You will get more money for your house. You will get more eyeballs. You will have all the realtors. There's like 23,000 real estate agents in the state of Minnesota. And if you offer a buyer agent commission, you are essentially telling all 23,000 agents, I would love to work with you. So I'm friendly. Bring your buyers. And if you don't offer commission, which you don't have to do, you're just not, it's going to take a lot longer to sell that house. It could potentially take longer. You might not necessarily get that savings back.
Yeah.
So I think it's just having high level conversations, being prepared, showing our value and not running away from it, but embracing it and being open to that conversation.
Yeah. Those are good points. And some of the conversations I'm having to kind of dovetail off of that, it hasn't come up a lot, but I'd say probably in 50% of my listing appointments that I've gone on, it's come up and we've touched on it and kind of moved past it.
Yeah.
But I always tell my clients, or have been telling my clients, look, I've got a toolbox with tools in it. And one of those tools is buyer's agents and the other 23,000 realtors out there, right?
Yes.
And I want them to be excited about your property like I'm excited about your property. And
Yeah.
one of those ways to get them excited is to offer them some sort of compensation. You get to choose what the compensation is, so you get to choose that level of excitement. And I've seen some local builders, some local realtors actually up it and go from 2.7 to 3 or 3.5, whatever it is, to kind of turn this thing on its head a little bit. And not sure if that's working or not, but I think it's a great strategy to entice agents to say, hey, we believe in you. We need you. We want you to bring your buyer, and we're willing to compensate you more than anybody else in the industry for that. So
Absolutely.
I agree with what you're saying, but I also have to say that I think this change was needed. I think that this transparency is going to be a good thing for the industry.
Agree.
I think it will trim a lot of fat in our industry.
Agree.
Unfortunately, it'll make it more challenging for those new agents because, as you know, when we first got in the industry, buyers were everything to us, and it's going to be more challenging, I think, for them to get in the industry the next 3, 4, 5 years. However, I've been watching what's happening behind the scenes, and I think all that's going to happen as a result of this are new forms that will come out and say, here's how we're going to get paid. We're just going to show it to you in writing. You're going to sign it, and it's going to be on the settlement statement as a line item now, rather than just built into the sale price.
Correct.
So
Exactly.
it's needed, but at the same time, it's going to be, I think, a clumsy change for a few months.
It's going to be a little bumpy.
Yeah.
I think that's what Colin Powell said is it's going to be a little bit of a bumpy ride.
Yeah.
Is it Powell? I actually don't know. They said it bumpy ride. And the term that I've heard from the company that I'm with, so Mr. Keller, who I respect, has said that it's going to be a slow moving train. We're not going backwards. We're not going to see any like major changes. It's just things are changing, and that's a good thing. And we just have to be prepared for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of change, there's one thing you could change in this industry. What would it be?
Man, that's a good question. I would love to see more supervision from brokers because we have brokers and brokerages where there's one agent, or I'm sorry, there's one broker or a couple brokers, and then there's thousands of realtors. And the broker's job is to oversee that agent, the salesperson, and make sure that they're doing, they're completing the forms, they're doing all the things they're supposed to, they're acting ethically. And I think that has been lost. So we have a lot of people running around. I know personally as a Wisconsin realtor, a lot of my contracts that are written on my listings are Minnesota agents that are buying, working with the buyer to buy a Wisconsin property. And I mean, some of these contracts are so poorly put together that I think, man, you didn't even put in any effort. So I'd love to see more broker oversight. I'd love to see, That's the biggest thing is just better business by better agents. Because then everybody wins.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think leadership is lacking in this business. Long story short, as a result of this NAR thing, I actually took it upon myself to kind of sit down and interview with a lot of the major leaders and brokers in the state.
Yep.
And I was embarrassed. I'm going to be really honest with you. Really honest with you. Yeah. What I've learned and I think what I forgot about is these folks that are leading a lot of these brokerages are just agents like you and I that couldn't hack it as a real estate agent. So they decided now they're going to be a leader, a broker owner, or a trainer or a recruiter. They just couldn't hack it out there in the everyday world of real estate. So now they decided to do that. And I sat down with every one of them and asked them the same questions. And really the underlying question is, how are you going to adapt to this change? What are you going to do? How are you going to set your agents up for success?
Yeah. And
they all just kind of shrugged it off like, nothing's changing. It's not a big deal. Like none of them had any answers. So it was a little bit disheartening. Not to say that I have all the answers either, but as a leader, you gotta decide what you're going to do, commit to it, and train your agents on that. And none of them had made any of those decisions, any of those commitments, and set up any training. You're right. It's disheartening, and I hope that as a result of this, we see some better leadership, some better training, and backing all the way up to getting your license, some better standards to get into the industry.
Yes.
So
yeah.
It's much needed, and I've said this many times, and I'm kind of beating a dead horse. But I hope that change brings change.
I agree. Yeah.
So
I'm glad you brought that up. Leadership. So I said broker leadership. I mean, same thing is if you don't have incredible leaders at the top of these companies, especially in the direction we're going, you're just kind of leaving your agents out there just to fend for themselves, and now's not the time.
Yeah. I mean, think about team leaders. I mean, right? I mean, most of these team leaders they don't want to sell real estate anymore. So they just decided to recruit a bunch of agents and get a commission split off of the agents and they don't do much of anything other than just recruit agents, and they get a warm body in and kick a warm body out.
It's game.
So
I agree.
I hope that changes. And I think you're right. And that's why I think we are kind of our values and visions and align.
I think a lot of those big team models like that too are going to be going away.
Agree.
Because when you look at where do consumers, why do they work with the agent that they work with? It's not because it was an internet lead or Boomtown lead or Zillow lead. I mean, there's agents throwing thousands of dollars a month at Zillow, but they don't have a system set up to capture those leads, and they don't understand it's an 18-month on average timeline before that lead is ready to convert. And so they're just throwing money at the wall, and they don't really have a clear vision, purpose. They don't have a business plan. They don't have a P&L. A lot of realtors have no idea how much money they make or how much they're spending.
Or how much they owe to the IRS.
Or you got to pay taxes, and then they're driving around these fancy cars. It's like, you run a business. You run a business, so you need to know what you're doing. And so I think that is going to be the realtors that focus on a business, that focus on a database, that focus on value, that focus on lead generation and conversion. They're fierce negotiators. They're competitive. They care about the consumer. Those are the agents that are going to thrive in the future.
Yeah.
And probably make more money.
I agree. So I think it'll be good for agents like you and I. Unfortunately, I think it'll be, we see a lot of people lose their job, their license. I wouldn't say it's their job, their hobby, right? Because they're treating this as a hobby.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we agree with that. So I want to change paths a little bit and talk a little bit about just the overall real estate market. My crystal ball broke in 2008 and you weren't in the business, but when things just crashed. So I always get asked by people, when's the best time to sell? Where's the market going? Are things going to appreciate? Are rates going to go down? It's kind of like predicting the weather. I mean, nobody knows anymore, right? And just based on the activities you've seen the first quarter of this year, what are you thinking the rest of the year is going to bring and maybe beyond?
Yeah. So they're predicting, last year we did about 4.1 million home sales in the United States, which is low. It's the lowest we've done in over a decade. And they're projecting that this year we're going to do about 4.2 to 4.3 million. So a little bit of an increase from last year, but not like it was in 2020 or 2021 when we were selling over 6 million homes a year. I mean, those were record years because obviously of interest rates. So I think that we're going to continue to, I think it'll depend on rates. If rates drop, and even if rates drop 0.5% or 0.25%, any sort of drop will get people out shopping and get people moving. Like you said, it's like locked up right now. So I think it depends a lot on that. I know last year they said that they were going to drop rates, they thought 4 times this year. And now they're saying, we don't really know because it's all about inflation. And inflation, I do not love inflation. Inflation is really, I think that is where a lot of people are struggling right now is you go to the grocery store and whatever you bought a month ago is now more money. And the other conversation is homeowners insurance. Everything is just costing a lot more money. So I think interest rates will drive a lot of that. And we'll see either more homes come on the market or people that are just going to stay put. I think that in 2025, we'll start to see a lot more because people are just going to get used to if rates are going to be at 7%,
Right.
they're just going to get used to it. And it's time to move on and get past
Right.
it. So I don't foresee anything crazy happening. I don't foresee a bust. Less than 1% of the market is a distressed property. So there's not these foreclosures coming that we're going to be seeing. So I think home prices are going to keep rising, honestly. I think they're going to rise.
Yeah,
I think they're just going to rise at a slower pace than they've been at.